Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Sorry that I haven't uploaded in a few days. I have been really busy and there's been a lot of things going on at work and personal stuff. A few changes coming in just from my life. I can't really talk about them now, but yeah, I'll tell you when I'm allowed to talk about them. But essentially, just quite a few big changes happening, and I'm just kind of going to working through them. Nothing bad, by the way. I mean, I realize I've made that sound really ominous. It's not that ominous. It's just stuff. Oh, guys, right. I've been a bit burnt out on Rumble, if I'm honest with you. I kind of feel like the passion that I had previously is not quite at the level it was. But I'm still gonna go at it. I think taking a break over the last few days has helped. I didn't even log in to do my dailies for like 4 days. So yeah, look, let's get into this video. We're looking at some of the talents. I made this big spreadsheet for everyone that can access it. And I'll caveat that this spreadsheet is not perfect. Like, ultimately, this is my opinion based on chatting to people, looking at the meta over the last few months, and generally just having a good spread of information at my disposal. But as we have found out numerous times before, someone will always find a way to make one of the talents work in a certain way. It will suddenly become a bit meta in the PvP meta, and people will say, well, Excoundrel, you told me not to get that one. And that's just going to happen. That is the nature of how metas work. And unfortunately, because of the way that Warcraft Rumble works, is that once you've committed to a talent, it's quite hard to then change over to another talent, which is one of my major frustrations with the game design of this game, is that it just gates you out for a long periods of time from accessing things that like wildly change the way that some of the minis work. Anyway, made some changes for Season 3 with Emperor Thaurissan, and obviously it's been a few weeks since Emperor Thaurissan's come out. It's given us some time to figure out where he lies in terms of his most useful talents, and I want to run through some of the big changes on this sheet. If you would like to run through the sheet in its full glory, I will link it in the description below. You can also find it on my Discord. I have notes. In general, I have some PvP specific notes. Not all of the PvP notes are super updated yet. I've gone through and updated some where I can. But I did this at the start of Season 2, I think, when we ended up getting Arathi Basin. So there was going to need to be some changes that I'll make over the next coming days. But anyway, in terms of Abomination, I used to say that Cannonball was okay, but if I'm completely honest with you, I'd just say that Noxious Presence is the best. So I'm going to flat out saying Noxious Presence is better than the other 3 talents at this point in time. Angry Chickens, interesting one. I still think Walking Crate is good, especially on a PvE standpoint, but I think there's definitely a case to be made for Furious Fowl. There has been a lot of use of chickens in PvP recently. And yes, they are very weak to things like, well, practically anything that does any kind of AoE damage, but a lot of people have made it so that you can see that the chickens have some value if you can get them onto the base. And Furious Fowl, Fury plus Bloodthirst from an Execute can really take down bases super quickly. So just to put that into context, I think there's some element of Furious Fowl. Amplification, still the best. Baron Rivendare is a big one here. Obviously, some people have been playing Death Pact Baron Rivendare. I still think that Chill of the Grave is the best talent, and I will say that because I just think that Skeleton Mages are still the strongest. Death Pact is good, but Baron himself is not the most OP unit ever. He's good, but he's not OP, right? That's why playing a like Death Pact where you re-heal your Baron, it works. I think it's once every 10 seconds it can happen. But Chill of the Grave just provides you with much more utility, and I still think Chill of the Grave stands to me as the best talent. People may disagree with me on this, but that's just my gut take on kind of Baron at this point in time. And I've had a look at some of the decks that the people in my guild have been playing, and to put it into context, my guild have some of the top players in the entire world. They all still play Chill of the Grave, so I'm still sticking with Chill of the Grave as my talent for Baron. Any other big changes here? I think there's some interesting thing about Storm's Chain Lightning. I used to think that both Reverberation and Brilliant Flash were okay, but some people have been playing Storm's Reach as well, just because it has some utility. I think it comes down to a matter of personal preference and what kind of deck you're playing. Brilliant Flash is great if you're kind of like trying to unstealth something, or you're trying to win a sharp trade between 2 minis that would otherwise not be won without the stun. A good example is like Cairn into Safe Pilot with Gnomish Cloaking Device. You want to play Brilliant Flash on the Gnomish Cloaking Device Safe Pilot to stop your Headhunter from going down, or your Troll, Dark Spear Troll. But Storm's Reach is good. Reverberation is also very flexible and very strong. So I think all of these can be used for Chain Lightning. It just depends on the deck that you're playing. I moved my recommendation of Chalga to Cavernous Mists, mostly because Nature's Grasp is better in a PvE setting, but frankly, we don't use Chalga that much in PvE anyway. Like, generally, the best beast leader for completing beast missions is going to be Old Murkai in 99% of the time, because he just gets so much value. So I think Cavernous Mists is still probably just the go-to now for Chalga, just better for PvP. Cheat Death Vampirism, that's fine. Chimera, I think most people have settled on Leviathan for PvP, even though Chimera's not good in PvP, and then probably Corrosive Breath from a PvE standpoint. Corrosive Breath, to me, is interesting because, look, if I'm going to run a mini that is designed to poison the boss as quickly as possible, I'm probably running Harpies with Infectious Swipes. So Corrosive Breath is... I don't think it stacks poison any... One second. Sorry, my son woke up and I had to go help him sleep. Yeah, so basically, the way I feel about Chimera is it's a really great unit and it's a very good anti-squad unit and it definitely has its purposes. But like in PvE, if I'm going to be looking for someone to apply poison, I'm looking at Harpies. It applies it the fastest in the game. So I just don't feel like it's worth it for that particular role. It's also 5 gold and it's not that tanky. You know, it's not a flying fortress. It will get killed by a Darkspear troll or a mountaineer. Like there are things that it really struggles with, especially in PvE where you seem to face mountaineers all the time. Frostshock is okay, very utility focused, but Leviathan just feels like the go-to for the unit. It just makes it feel that much more tanky. Stacks 3 times, so you get 30% extra HP overall, which is quite a decent amount. It's funny that Leviathan, though, is like... It's kind of like the fortification talent on Footman, because even though they get it as empty HP, you only ever run that with a healer, right? So they end up getting like free 30% extra HP for 1 talent, whereas you've got to play Chimera 3 times to get the 30% extra HP, although you don't have to heal it, obviously. Corehouse, Eternal Bond, still the same one. Dark Iron Man is an interesting one. Any one of these 3 is meta, depending on kind of what the PvP meta looks like. For ages, it was Goldmine, and I think Goldmine still is the go-to standard. But, like, people were running Dwarven Ambition to outtrade the enemy. What I would say is, like, Dark Iron Man's, I'm going to move that, actually. It's probably the one that is the least useful. But people were playing Dwarven Ambition because it just meant that they would trade versus other Dark Iron Miners much more effectively. Goldmine is, I think, in general, the kind of go-to. It's more... like ubiquitously useful, but yeah. Darkspear Troll, Big Bad Voodoo, still the one. All of them good on Defiance Bandit. Now that I've got Deep Breath, because I didn't have Deep Breath the last time I did this. Now that I've got Deep Breath, Double Dragon definitely is the go-to in terms of best first talent. These 2 are very much situational, so if you ever get Deep Breath, Double Dragon's kind of like the go-to first one. Anything else that has changed up? Yeah, here we go. Emperor Thaurissan. Hubris seems to be the go-to talent for pretty much everybody, and I think after having tested all of them, even though I looked at Rumble with Legendaries videos, Hubris is just kind of like the go-to. It has more use. It generally works in PvP better. It definitely can work in PvE as well, although of course levels mean a little less in PvE, it feels like. Moira's Wit, I've used it. It feels okay. It doesn't feel insane. And Incinerate obviously is good, but it's very rarely a situation where that permanent burn is going to be the difference maker for you, and especially because it's not permanent on bosses or on barracks of the enemy. So Hubris is just kind of like the go-to first talent for Emperor Thaurissan. Especially because you play him with non-elemental minis, because the point of him is to make your non-elemental minis deal burning damage. Execute Bloodthirsty, I changed that this time round. It was still on Overpower. That tells you how long it's been since I've updated this list. But Bloodthirsty is just the go-to. Everyone's running it. I still don't know on Flame Waker, and someone might be able to support me and give me a better option here. I still really don't know the best. Backdraft seems to be the one that everyone raves about, but I just haven't tested Flame Waker enough. It's an expensive unit where there isn't that many opportunities to really use an expensive unit like Flame Waker where it's going to get a huge amount of value. So, and I think also obviously the air units are just so popular. Like a Griffin Rider deals with Flame Waker. Footman Fortification, definitely. I think Shield Bash has its place, especially in non-healing decks, which is why I've left it as green. But kind of people go for Fortification first because you're generally going to run Footman in some sort of healing deck. Wing Buffet on Gargoyle. Aerial Superiority is good in some scenarios. For instance, I really like it on the Gish boss because it actually affects Gish. Ghoul, Bone Shield, definitely the one. Griffin Rider has had some changes. I think Odin's Fury I'm going to leave as yellow. Mighty Throw, still kind of standard, but Airdrop works in these kind of level up decks. So people run Airdrop with Gargoyle to make it get levels up in PvP, so that's why I've dropped it forward. I remember Mr. Brute made an Airdrop video with Hogger a very long time ago, and he was like, I think this has legs, and didn't really take off then, but has taken off very heavily with Gargoyle now. Infectious Swipes is still the go-to if you're kind of planning on running Harpies in boss killing scenarios, but Trinket Collectors can be very strong. I used it in my Ren deck, for instance. It was very valuable on certain maps. Harvest Golem. So I still think Unstable Core is generally the most useful. But as we saw with Rumble with Legendary, Trojan Chickens definitely has their value. Trojan Chickens is actually the talent that I originally recommended. But I can see that obviously it's not always going to be the sort of the strong option, whereas Unstable Core is almost always going to have some kind of value, even if it's very defensive. Hamhock for Hogger, obviously. Looking at anything else that might have changed on the last patch, everything here is very similar. Necromancer, Jeweled Skulls, still kind of the go-to. I think for Skeleton Mages are still just too powerful. Marathon and the Murlocs, definitely good for old Murkite, although Electric Eels works. Trying to see if there's anything else. Predatory Instincts, I'm actually going to make green while we're here, because there is some instincts, places where Predatory Instincts is getting used, but on the Prow is still kind of like the go-to. I'm going to move Conflagrate to green as well, because it is also a very good talent in certain scenarios, but Power Blast is still kind of like the talent that helps you trade up massively. Now, Bristleback, this is interesting. Bristleback got nerfed, but I still think it's kind of the best PvP talent for Quillbore. I've actually moved Tunnel Vision away from green. Tunnel Vision used to be my go-to. I've just realized that it doesn't offer you much extra other than you get some extra basic attacks in more quickly. And that's not always that useful for Quillbore. So Bristleback to me kind of is the go-to just because it has a lot of useful uses, even though on Sneed you can't cheese them anymore. But it really is still very good for Dark Iron Miners and lots of other things. It can still deal with a pack of chickens by itself, etc. Scale and Steel is now my official recommended for Ren Blackhand. I had it on Flaming Soul for ages. I still love Flaming Soul. Still think you can get huge outplay potential with it, but Scale and Steel is just kind of the more consistent. Safe Pilot, here we go. Gnomish Cloaking Device is back to being the number one. Coming in hot is still okay, but the damage reduction really does hurt. And I think I've had a look at some of the decks that my colleagues and my friends are running in Honor Guards, which is our top PvP deck. And actually, a lot of people have removed Safe Pilot altogether, but if they are running Safe Pilot, they're running her with Gnomish Cloaking Device. So yeah, like I said, a lot of people have actually removed Gnomish Cloaking Device. Removed Safe Pilot from their decks, but I still think Gnomish Cloaking Device is probably the best. I think for PvP, I don't know. I think for PvP, I think Coming Hot still works. It just has a massively reduced damage output, which just doesn't feel so good. Especially because if you're going up against certain minis, Coming in Hot, I think the more that the meta opens up, the more that people start running stuff that previously Coming in Hot was one-shotting, the less you're going to see Coming in Hot. But I still think Gnomish Cloaking kind of just goes back to being the de facto talent, because at least you get a guaranteed hit off afterwards. I will miss the reactiveness of Coming in Hot, though, if I end up not using it. Exhume is the go-to on Skeletons right now. I've moved Vultures to Tendon Rip rather than Migration. In the beta, someone messaged me after I made this and said, you don't know what you're talking about with Vultures. Migration is the go-to if you listen to anyone in the beta. And then I started watching people, and especially when I was watching Rumble with Legendary, he was like, I would never run I have Migration, but I'm not running it because it makes this deck suck. So I was like, yes, Tendon Rip, just for a very low-cost mini, to give it some utility, that feels like the go-to play. So Tendon Rip, that's what I've gone back to. And nothing else here that's kind of out of this world. Flame Burst still obviously the go-to. In fact, I'm actually going to, so much so, I'm going to put Rookery on bad, because there's just these two compared to Flame Burst are just so poor. Anyway, that is my Season 3 talented update list. I'll keep doing this. I'll keep it updated throughout the times. If you guys want access to it, there's a link in the description below. Hope it helps you, and I will see you soon.